Once upon a time, in the vibrant city of Ibadan, Nigeria, known for its rich culture, colorful markets, and winding streets filled with the aroma of street food, there lived a successful businessman named Mr. Chinedu. He was a man of great wealth, owning numerous shops, fleets of expensive cars, and even a big, beautiful house perched majestically on a hill overlooking the city. People in Ibadan admired his success and often whispered about his sharp business acumen, but behind his charming smile was a heart shadowed by deep jealousy and cruelty. His laughter echoed in the markets and his presence was felt in every business deal, yet those closest to him knew the darkness that lurked beneath his polished exterior. Mr. Chinedu had a lovely wife named Amara. She was not only beautiful but also kind and gentle. Her warm heart and caring nature made her beloved by everyone who met her. She was known for her charitable work, helping the poor and the needy in their community. Her laughter was like music to the ears of those she helped, and her presence brought light into even the darkest corners of Ibadan. After a few years of marriage, Amara gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. They named him Kolechi, meaning thank God in Igbo. Amara loved Kolechi with all her heart, and everyone in Ibadan thought Mr. Chinedu would be the happiest father in the city. The community celebrated with them, bringing gifts and singing songs of joy. But Mr. Chinedu's heart was not like that of other fathers. Instead of feeling joy and pride, he felt something dark growing inside him. He saw how Amara's eyes sparkled when she looked at Kolechi, how she sang sweet lullabies to him, and how she cradled him lovingly in her arms. Each tender moment between mother and child was a thorn in Mr. Chinedu's heart. Mr. Chinedu grew jealous of his own son. He wanted all of Amara's attention for himself and resented the bond between mother and child. This jealousy gnawed at his soul, turning his love for Amara into possessiveness and his pride into bitterness. At first, it was small things. He would frown when Amara spent too much time in the nursery. He would make snide comments when she postponed their outings to care for Kolechi. His words, once sweet and loving, became sharp and cold. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Mr. Chinedu's jealousy festered like a wound left untreated. He began to distance himself from his wife and child, throwing himself into his businesses. The once warm family dinners became silent and tense. He would return home late at night, his face darkened with a scowl whenever he saw Amara doting on Kolechi. The laughter and joy that filled their house became unbearable to him, like nails scraping against his heart. Amara noticed the change in her husband, but she thought it was due to work stress. She tried to support him, offering kind words and gestures, never realizing the darkness brewing in his heart. Friends and family noticed too, but no one dared to speak out. One evening, as the sun was setting and painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Mr. Chinedu's jealousy boiled over. The house was quiet, with Amara in the kitchen preparing Kolechi's evening meal. The aroma of pepper soup filled the air, mingling with the sweet scent of baby powder from Kolechi's nursery. Mr. Chinedu crept into the nursery where baby Kolechi was sleeping peacefully. The baby's tiny chest rose and fell with each soft breath, his small fingers curled into fists. The innocence of the child, so pure and untouched, enraged Mr. Chinedu. Mr. Chinedu's heart pounded with anger and envy. His mind clouded with dark thoughts. Without thinking, he picked up little Kolechi and, with a cruel heart, threw him off the balcony. The baby fell, and his cries were silenced forever. The city's noise seemed to hush, as if the world itself mourned the loss. Amara had just finished warming Kolechi's milk when she heard a strange noise, a soft thud followed by an eerie silence. Her heart skipped a beat. She rushed to the nursery, but Kolechi's crib was empty. Panic surged through her veins as she frantically searched every corner of the house, calling out his name. Her voice, once filled with love, now trembled with fear. Then, as she approached the balcony, her eyes caught sight of a small, lifeless bundle lying on the ground below. Her screams pierced the evening air, drawing the attention of neighbors. The whole neighborhood gathered, their faces etched with shock and sorrow, as Amara collapsed to the ground in agony. The streets of Ibadan echoed with whispers of disbelief and grief. When the police arrived, Mr. Chinedu stood calmly by, claiming that Kolechi had accidentally fallen. He spun a story about the baby crawling out of his crib and somehow managing to reach the balcony. His lies were smooth, but his eyes betrayed no sorrow. But Amara knew in her heart that something was terribly wrong. It wasn't until a neighbor, who had seen Mr. Chinedu standing on the balcony moments before the fall, whispered the truth to Amara that her worst fears were confirmed. The neighbor's words were like a dagger to Amara's heart. Devastated and furious, Amara wasted no time. She ran to the police station, tears streaming down her face, and told the officers everything. Her cries echoed in the station, a mother's anguish laid bare for all to see. "My husband killed our son," she cried. "Please, you have to arrest him." The police, seeing her distress and hearing the neighbor's account, arrested Mr. Chinedu that very evening. For a brief moment, Amara felt a flicker of hope that justice would be served. But that hope was short-lived, snuffed out like a candle in the wind. When Amara returned home to gather her belongings, she encountered Mama Ifeoma, Mr. Chinedu's mother. Mama Ifeoma was a woman of great influence and even greater wickedness. She was feared in the community for her sharp tongue and ruthless ways. Her pride in her son knew no bounds, and she believed he could do no wrong. "I will not let you disgrace my son," Mama Ifeoma hissed, her eyes blazing with fury. "What happened was an accident. My son can never kill his own blood. If you continue with those allegations, you will regret it. You are no longer welcome in this family. My son will send you the divorce papers." Amara stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. She realized that Mama Ifeoma would stop at nothing to protect her son, even if it meant threatening her own daughter-in-law. The house that once felt like home now seemed like a prison filled with ghosts of betrayal. Mama Ifeoma bribed the police officers with large sums of money, ensuring their loyalty. Within days, the police announced that there was no proof of Mr. Chinedu's guilt. They claimed the neighbor's testimony was unreliable and that Kolechi's death was a tragic accident. Mr. Chinedu was released from custody, his smug smile returning as he walked free. The injustice stung like salt on an open wound. Amara was heartbroken and enraged. Betrayed by the justice system, her husband, and her mother-in-law, she had no choice but to leave. She packed her bags with trembling hands and fled the house, her heart heavy with sorrow. She wandered from place to place, finding shelter with distant relatives and kind strangers, but the pain of losing her son and being denied justice never left her heart. She spent nights crying herself to sleep, haunted by memories of Kolechi's laughter and the moments they shared. Each sunrise felt like a reminder of her loss. Years passed, and Mr. Chinedu, with his wealth and charm, found another woman to marry. Her name was Nnenna, a beautiful young woman who taught at the local high school in Ibadan. Nnenna came from a loving family. Her father, Baba Musa, was a retired school principal, and her mother, Amina, was a nurse. She had two brothers, Idris and Suleiman, who were protective of their sister and cared for her deeply. They had always supported Nnenna in her dreams and ambitions, and the family shared a close bond filled with laughter and love. Their home was always filled with warmth, a stark contrast to the coldness that awaited Nnenna in her new life. At first, Nnenna thought she had found a wonderful husband. Mr. Chinedu showered her with gifts and compliments. He promised her a life of luxury and comfort, and Nnenna, charmed by his generosity, believed she had found true love. But soon, his true nature began to show. He told Nnenna to stop working, saying, "You don't need to work. I will take care of everything." Reluctantly, Nnenna complied with his demands, leaving behind her beloved teaching job. It broke her heart to abandon her students, but she convinced herself it was for the sake of her marriage. Then he said, "You must cut ties with your family. No man, not even your brothers, should touch you or greet you." With a heavy heart, Nnenna distanced herself from her family, even from her mother, Amina, who loved her more than anything. Her mother's tearful pleas echoed in Nnenna's mind, but fear kept her from reaching out. Mr. Chinedu's control over Nnenna grew stronger with each passing day. He followed her to the market, watched her at the hair salon, and even accompanied her to the bank. Almost everywhere she went, his shadow loomed over her, suffocating any sense of freedom she once had. Nnenna felt trapped, but she was too afraid to speak out. She began to feel isolated and alone, longing for the warmth of her family. To make matters worse, her relationship with Mama Ifeoma was strained from the beginning. Mama Ifeoma treated Nnenna with coldness and suspicion, constantly criticizing her cooking, her manners, and even her appearance. She believed no woman was good enough for her son and made sure Nnenna felt unwelcome in the family. Whenever Mr. Chinedu was not around, Mama Ifeoma would whisper hurtful words, undermining Nnenna's confidence and making her feel isolated. One day, Nnenna found out she was pregnant. When the doctor told them it was a baby boy, Nnenna was filled with joy. She dreamed of holding her son, singing him lullabies, and watching him grow. But Mr. Chinedu's face darkened. He didn't want a son. He didn't want to share Nnenna's love with anyone, not even their own child. "You must get rid of that baby," he ordered coldly. Nnenna refused. She loved her unborn child and couldn't imagine harming him. But Mr. Chinedu was determined. One evening, while Nnenna was taking a shower, he slipped a drug into her drink. When she came out of the bathroom, feeling refreshed and unaware of his sinister plan, she noticed the drink waiting for her on the table. Trusting her husband, she took a few sips. Within moments, she began to feel unusually tired and dizzy. The room started to spin, and her legs grew weak. Soon, she lost consciousness, and Mr. Chinedu carried her to a shady veterinary clinic, far from town. Meanwhile, Nnenna's brothers, Idris and Suleiman, had grown suspicious of Mr. Chinedu's controlling behavior. They had been trying to reach Nnenna for weeks, their calls unanswered and messages ignored. On the night of her disappearance, they decided to visit her home unannounced. When they found the house empty, panic set in. Desperate to find their sister, they asked neighbors and followed leads until they discovered that Mr. Chinedu had taken her out of town. Cut open her belly and removed the baby, Mr. Chinedu demanded the frightened vet. But the vet, shocked and horrified, couldn't do it. He pretended to agree, but before he could call the police, Idris and Suleiman burst through the clinic doors, their faces filled with fury and fear. "Where is our sister?" Idris shouted, his voice trembling with emotion. The brothers rushed to Nnenna's side, their presence filling the room with a fierce, protective energy. Mr. Chinedu tried to escape, but Suleiman tackled him to the ground while Idris checked on Nnenna. Just as they were restraining Mr. Chinedu, the police arrived, alerted by the vet's earlier call. Seeing her brothers' faces brought tears to Nnenna's eyes even in her weakened state. The bond of family had been her saving grace. This time, justice prevailed. The evidence against Mr. Chinedu was undeniable, and with new officers handling the case, Mama Ifeoma's influence could not reach far enough to protect her son. Mr. Chinedu was arrested and finally faced justice for his terrible deeds. Nnenna recovered, and soon after, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She named him Chibik, meaning "God is my strength," to honor the strength she found within herself and her child. She reconnected with her family, realizing the depth of their love and the importance of never letting go of those who truly care. When Amora heard what had happened, she finally found peace knowing Mr. Chinedu would never hurt anyone again. She and Nnenna became friends, sharing their stories and finding comfort in each other. They supported one another through their healing, and Amora found solace in helping Nnenna raise her son. Together, they built a bond that was stronger than the pain they had endured. Meanwhile, Mama Ifeoma's world crumbled. The community that once feared and respected her turned their backs on her. She became an outcast, her influence fading as people whispered about her wickedness. Alone and disgraced, she spent her final years in bitterness and regret, haunted by the loss of her son and the realization that her cruelty had destroyed her family. The once proud woman was left to face the consequences of her actions, abandoned by those she had tried to impress. Nnenna's family welcomed Amora with open arms, and together they built a new, loving family.